Performing from memory without the music can be pretty nerve-wracking, especially if we've had memory slips in the past. There are, of course, a lot of obvious things we can do to increase our memory security and confidence under pressure, like doing lots of run-throughs and memory tests in advance, especially in front of other people. But there's one aspect of memory that almost all of us overlook, and which we almost never prepare for. A quick hint is that while this is something that affects all musicians, it might affect pianists even more than most. So what is this thing that we neglect in our preparation? In this video, I'll share a hidden factor that can lead to unexpected memory fails, and how to nullify this effect and increase your memory security on stage. So most research on memorization of music has focused more on exploring various encoding strategies like structural analysis, and there's been less attention devoted to the retrieval process. But there are a lot of factors that can affect recall too. One is a phenomenon known as context-dependent memory. This is a curious observation that we have better recall of information if we're tested on that material in the same environment where we learned it. For instance, way back in 1975, two psychologists tested members of a scuba diving club on their ability to recall a list of words while sitting on the dock or submerged underwater in their scuba gear. As it turned out, participants were able to recall the words just fine whether they were on land or underwater, as long as they did their learning and recalling in the same place. In other words, those who learned in one environment and then were asked to do recall in a different environment recalled fewer words than those who did their learning and recall in the same environment. It's important to note that context-dependent memory effects are notoriously unpredictable and tricky to study, since it's difficult to predict in advance what specific elements of an environment will matter. But enough studies have found a memory advantage for recall in the learning environment that we can be reasonably confident that this is probably a legit phenomenon. So what does this have to do with pianists? Well, one of the unenviable realities of being a pianist is that they must spend most of their time practicing and learning and getting comfortable on one piano, yet perform on some strange, foreign, unfamiliar piano when it matters most. And sure, all pianos have the same number of keys and are basically the same size and shape and so forth, but the weight and touch of the keys can be vastly different, not to mention the sound. So a pair of researchers were curious to see if practicing on one piano and performing on a different piano might increase the likelihood of memory slips. They asked 32 college piano students to memorize a short 16-bar piece that was composed specifically for the study, and then the students learned the piece on either a 7-foot Steinway grand or a Kawai upright, both of which were located in the same teaching studio. Then they were asked to perform the piece from memory on either the same piano that they used when learning the piece or the other piano. And how'd they do? Well, those who did their practicing and performing on the same piano did well on their performance test, scoring an average of about 26 out of 32 on the Steinway and about 28 out of 32 on the Kawai. But it was a very different story for the students who were asked to switch to a different piano for their performance. They had way more memory issues, including wrong notes and incorrect rhythms, and ended up with an average score of about 14 out of 32 going from the Steinway to the Kawai, and about 16 going from the Kawai to the Steinway. So what are we to do about this? Is there anything we can do to counter the context-dependent memory phenomenon? Fortunately, the answer is yes. It turns out that learning material in multiple contexts during learning can help strengthen our ability to recall information in a new environment and nullify the context-dependent memory effect. Of course, most of us are creatures of habit and tend to practice in the same exact spot in our house every day, or gravitate towards a select few favorite practice rooms and favorite pianos if we're in school. And this is where it can be really helpful to step outside of our comfort zone and practice in different places, whether it's different rooms in one's house or in different venues with different acoustical demands in the lead up to a recital. Or if you're in school, as tempting as it is to complain about practice room pianos not being in tune, or how some keys are stuck, or the action isn't to your liking, it's kind of a luxury to have access to so many different pianos, as each one not only provides a fresh new challenge to overcome, but can help to make your memory much more robust as well. Of course, there's a lot more to the memory process than just practicing in different spaces. For instance, it turns out that the best memorizers don't wait, but start memorizing from the very beginning. And effective memorizers also tend to go through a 3-phase encoding, consolidation, and retrieval memorization process that tracks alongside the process of learning notes. And they also embed 4 specific types of performance cues into the music throughout the learning process. Much of it is surprisingly concrete and very practical, and I've distilled much of what we've learned in the last couple decades into a step-by-step course on memorization specifically for musicians that will be available for a limited public release from October 19 to 26, 2025. If you'd like to get on the waitlist so you don't miss it, just enter your email address at the link in the description below.